welcome to Owlbutcast. Yes, we were ready this week, we were. If you've watched the news tonight, no, I know the news isn't on yet, but we're recording this before the news, but they'll be watching it after the news. If you watch the news tonight, you've probably seen something about the Northern Ireland Assembly, and the Prime Minister's been over there. So I thought we'd talk to you a little bit this week about what it all means, what's going on. And already, in fact, on our website, we have something about all of this, because if you go into Times Past section and go to that's because we're so clever. You're a bit slow there. If you go into Times Past section and go to 1999, you will see we talk about devolution. Devolution. And that was when the United Kingdom government gave extra powers, or gave some powers in fact, to an assembly or a parliament in Scotland and in Wales. In Scotland it was called a parliament, in Wales it was called an assembly, but it was basically the same thing, and they were allowed to make their own laws and control things like education and health and agriculture and things like that. Now, as you probably know, there are 4 countries that make up the United Kingdom, and you know them all, right? What are they? Correct. Wales, Scotland, England, and the 4th one, Northern Ireland. Now, Northern Ireland was a little bit different, because we refer you, when you go to that 1999 page, to another page on Times Past, which is 1921. And in 1921, the island of Ireland, I stuttered, no I didn't stutter, the island of, I'm going to put that up, the island of Ireland, no, I'm not going to explain it to you. The island of Ireland was divided in 2. The lower part became the Republic of Ireland, self-governing country all on its own. The top bit, Northern Ireland, remained part of the United Kingdom and is the 4th country in United Kingdom, correct. So that was why they were a bit different, and there were lots of problems leading on from that. Basically, the people in Northern Ireland, some of them, the majority of them at that time, were unionist, which means they wanted to be part of the United Kingdom, but there were some people there who were nationalists, and they wanted to be part of the Republic of Ireland. Read all about it, see what happens. But in 1999, the Northern Ireland Assembly was set up, and it had its first powers to operate and set its own laws as well on the 2nd of December 1999. Now it can deal again with education, health, policing, justice, agriculture and a few other things. So there it was set up, but the problem was it had to be, or the agreement was, that there would be 2 first ministers, one representing the unionists within Northern Ireland and one representing the nationalists. Now, the very first assembly had as its first minister a member of the unionists. It was the Reverend Ian Paisley, and with him as deputy first minister was Martin McGuinness, the leader of Sinn Féin, who were the Nationalist Party. The rules of the assembly were that for it to operate, both of those had to be part of it. And in fact, the deputy first minister and the first minister had almost identical powers. It's just that the first minister was the leader, or the nominated person, who represented the party that had the most seats in the assembly. The Northern Ireland Assembly has 90 seats, so there are 90 members, and it was the Unionists who had the most seats back in 1999, and so Ian Paisley became the leader, the First Minister. Sorry. Right, what happened next? Well, in 2002, after only going on for about 2.5 years, it was suspended. The Northern Ireland Assembly was suspended, and the governing of Northern Ireland was taken over, or taken back to the United Kingdom government and the civil servants in Northern Ireland who'd been doing all the work anyway. And that suspension lasted for 5 years, from the 14th of October 2002 to the 7th of May 2007. And it happened because, in that case, the Unionist Party didn't like some of the things that were going on, so they said, well, we're not going to take part anymore. Then they had a good run, 10 years. But on the 8th of January 2017, the Nationalist Party, Sinn Féin, said, we don't like something here, we're not going to be part of this. We won't worry about what the arguments were all about, but basically they didn't like something about the other party and so on and so forth. And so from then, 8th of January 2017 until the 17th of January 2020, no assembly again. Then they got back together again, but on the 3rd of February 2022, another problem. And this time it was the Unionists who pulled out. Not this time because they had a problem with the other party, but because they had a problem about the rules that had been imposed on Northern Ireland following the Brexit arrangement. And they felt that Northern Ireland was being treated differently from the rest of the United Kingdom. There were certain laws put in force, certain checks would be put in force on goods coming from Great Britain, Scotland, Wales and England to Northern Ireland, and they didn't like that. Now, the problem is that Northern Ireland is different from the rest of Britain because it is connected by a land border to a European Union country, the Republic of Ireland. So there is a difference between how they had to start treating things. Anyway, the Unionists didn't like this, and it's taken 2 years, but now it appears that the British government have managed to satisfy the demands that the Democratic Unionist Party had, and they have agreed to go back into government. So the Northern Ireland Assembly is back again. Now, even though it wasn't sitting, even though there was no Northern Ireland Assembly as such, in May 2022 they had elections. Yes, so the people elected did nothing, basically. Well, they couldn't. But at those elections, the Nationalist Party, Sinn Féin, actually won more seats than the Democratic Unionist Party. Which means that as of the 3rd of February 2024, which was Saturday, yes, we're very topical, yes, when the Assembly met again, the leader, the First Minister, sorry, not the leader, the First Minister, because the Deputy First Minister has the same powers, but the person who will be called the First Minister was the person from Sinn Féin. And it happened to be that it was a woman, Michelle O'Neill, and she now is the First Minister. The Deputy First Minister, coming from the Democratic Unionist Party, is also a woman. Her name is Emma Little Pengelly, hyphenated as you can see. And those two are now going to be running the Assembly. The first thing the Assembly had to do when it met was elect a Speaker, i.e. a person in charge of the Assembly, which they duly did. And if you were watching the news today, you will have seen that both the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Rishi Sunak, and also the Prime Minister of the Republic of Ireland, and they actually don't call their Prime Minister, they call them a Taoiseach. Yeah, a bit tricky, isn't it? Yeah. His name is Leo Varadkar, and he also went over to Northern Ireland, and they all met, and hopefully this is going to mean that the Northern Ireland Assembly will now function and be able to start providing a government for the people of Northern Ireland from Northern Ireland. The whole Assembly, the whole Assembly assembles, I used the same word, yes. The Northern Ireland Assembly meets, how's that? Is that better? Yes. Meets in a place called Stormont Castle, which is part of the Stormont estate, which is just to the east of Belfast. And there's a picture of it. Yeah. It's a bit big for 90 people. Yes, the Assembly meets there, but lots of other things go on there as well. Yes, okay. So they will now hopefully be meeting. There are of course going to be problems, the first one of which is that they'd like some more money, please. Who wouldn't? But we'll have to see. But what it means is, if you followed this and gone and looked at 1999 in the Times Past section, and also 1921 in the Times Past section, you should know a little bit more about what's been going on in the Northern Ireland Assembly. Okay, so that's pretty topical for you, so I don't know what we're going to do next week. We have to be even more topical, yes. Well, perhaps we'll do something next week about something that hasn't happened yet. And what? I'm stupid. Oh, thank you. So anyway, something that hasn't happened yet, perhaps we'll do a story about when Richard was clever. Yeah, okay. We'll see you next week anyway. Bye bye.